About 12 years ago, back in my home village, when I still lived there, people started disappearing. I might not remember every detail perfectly, but I'll try to get across the gist of it. I just moved up to 5th grade and was on summer break. That year the weather was scorching hot. Wildfires were raging in a neighboring region, and I remember exactly how it all started. I woke up very early that morning to my alarm. I'd arranged with my buddy Pashka to go fishing before the heat set in. My sleepy mom saw me off and handed me a bag of sandwiches in case we got hungry. Pashka was already waiting for me by the fence, yawning loudly enough that probably every neighbor around could hear him. We got on our bikes and rode down the street, past the old, low houses. We crossed the little wooden bridge over the tiny pond where the geese and ducks usually splashed around. We passed the village grocery store, and not far from it, Aunt Katya, my third cousin, called out to us. Yeah, in our village pretty much everyone's related to everyone somehow. Pasha, Serioza, have you seen my Lyanka? She asked, peeking out from behind her crooked fence. She meant her husband, well, husband in the loose sense. They'd only been living together about a year, since he got out of prison. Haven't seen him. I shook my head, same as Pashka. Ugh, what is going on? Aunt Katya slapped her hands against her sides, upset. He went out to the shop for a bottle last night. It's barely a 2-minute walk that I have no idea where he could have gone. If you boys see him, let me know, okay? We promised her we would, and rode on. He's probably off rolling around with Lyuska somewhere. Pashka snickered once we'd ridden far enough that my aunt couldn't hear. And yeah, I agreed with him at the time. Lyuska was our shopkeeper, a pretty girl, and there'd been a lot of rumors about her in the village. So there we were, gossiping and laughing, speculating about Uncle Lyonia supposedly cheating on his wife, as we rode out to the edge of the village, where the biggest abandoned house stood at the very end. I honestly don't even remember who used to live there. It had been empty since I was little. The yard was overgrown with weeds so thick you couldn't see the ground floor windows or the porch. Part of the fence had collapsed and just disappeared. Homeless people might have used it for firewood. They used to live in that house at some point. We probably would have just ridden past without a second glance at the usual ruin. But standing in front of it was a door. Just a regular white wooden door with narrow frame edges, sticking straight up out of the ground. We stopped our bikes on the road and just stared at it for a while in silence. Then we looked at each other, baffled. What the heck, is this some kind of joke? Pashka set his bike down and walked up to the door, circled around it, rattled the noticeable handle, but it turned out to be locked, of all things. He kicked it a few times, but the door didn't even budge. It was stuck firm in the ground. Hey, you think this might be some prank? I remember glancing nervously around, trying to spot a hidden camera somewhere in the bushes or in the dark, empty windows of the abandoned house. Pash, seriously, forget it. Let's go. I don't want to end up on YouTube somewhere. Yeah, alright. Pashka still gave the door one more kick before heading back to his bike. There wasn't even a shoe mark left on the white surface. We rode on to the river without any trouble. I don't remember how much we caught that day, doesn't really matter. On the way back, we noticed the door was gone. It struck us as a little odd, but we didn't dwell on the strange door for long. We had our own kid stuff to worry about. Aunt Katya spent the whole day looking for Uncle Lyonya. She had a brutal fight with Lyuska, demanding her man back, and even tore her own house apart, searching every corner, checking if he was hiding somewhere. The shouting could be heard across the whole village, and a lot of people came running to watch the big scandal, basically a whole show for the village. I won't be modest about it, my friends and I ran over to see it too. A lot of people were laughing at the whole scene. But by the next day, nobody was laughing anymore. I remember waking up to loud shouting from next door. The Ivanov family was running around their yard, calling out for Oksanka, their daughter, my classmate. Her mom had checked her room that morning and found it empty. The bed looked slept in but messy, as if the girl had just stepped out for a moment, and lying alone in the middle of the yard was her pink slipper. Total panic broke out in the village. I don't remember anything like it happening before. At first the locals searched on their own, then they called emergency services, and soon a full search operation was set up in our village. Something like a couple hundred people were out searching for her. There's a small forest near us, and the rescuers, volunteers, and dogs combed through it from end to end, checked the river, every ditch, every abandoned house. My dad joined the search too. I remember him being gone for long stretches, sometimes a whole day at a time. The girl's disappearance hit him hard, and not just because her dad was his best friend. Before our family, my dad had had another one, and he'd had a little daughter who drowned in the river when she was 5. They never found her body, and his first wife later moved far away from the village. I wanted to go help search for my classmate, but my parents wouldn't let me, and told me not to leave the yard at all. Of course, I was pretty upset about it, and grumbled around the house for days while everyone else helped the Ivanovs. One evening, my grandmother, apparently tired of my grumbling, said, "The police think Oksana wasn't a runaway, they think she was kidnapped. Where would she have run off to wearing just one slipper? Who would kidnap her, and why?" I asked, completely confused. In my kid's mind, kidnapping happened for ransom or, like in the movies, to get some kind of information. What could Oksanka possibly know that would get her kidnapped? And her family didn't even have much money. My grandmother glanced nervously toward the kitchen, where Mom was cooking, and lowered her voice. "Well, people are saying Uncle Lyonya might have taken her. The investigators are already talking to Aunt Katya. She won't even say what he went to prison for. Who knows what he did? Mom, stop telling him scary stuff like that. He won't sleep at all tonight," my mom snapped from the kitchen. My grandmother pressed her lips together, looking guilty. I wanted to ask her more, but she smoothly changed the subject. Later, after dark, as I was getting ready for bed, my exhausted dad came home. I remember he wasn't just worn out from the fruitless search, he was upset too. When we asked, he sighed and said there were no traces of the girl anywhere. The search dogs just kept circling the yard. Right where they'd found her shoe, it was like she'd vanished into thin air. And they couldn't pick up Uncle Lyonia's trail either. Dad confirmed the police considered him the main suspect in the kidnapping. Police think the girl disappeared at night, Dad said grimly, sitting over the plate Mom had set in front of him. He barely touched the food. There was apparently one witness. Anton Frolov was walking home from the club around midnight and passed by the Ivanovs' house. He says he saw a white door sticking up right in the middle of their yard. But he only looked at it briefly, shrugged, and kept walking, didn't think much of it. That Frolov's a known blabbermouth, Mom said, waving it off. Last summer he was going around saying a UFO flew over our village. Pashka and I saw a door too, a couple days ago, I admitted. It was by the big abandoned house, the one with the green roof. We figured it was some kind of prank. Mom and Grandma looked at me, surprised. Dad looked grim and worried. What did the door look like? Can you describe it? Just a regular white wooden door, with a handle shaped like the letter G, gold-colored. It was standing right in front of the yard of the abandoned house, and when we rode back, it was already gone. That's strange, Dad muttered darkly, pushing his plate away. I'm going to go tell the search team and the rescuers about it. Oh, Lyosha, don't be ridiculous, Mom said, making a face. What door? What nonsense is that? How's that supposed to help find Oksana or Lyonka? But Dad went anyway to tell the rescue team about the strange door. And luckily he came back soon, because just as we were going to bed, a terrifying scream rang out outside. Our neighbor Vasily Skvortsov came running down the main road of the village. I remember that moment clearly, it's burned into my memory. He was running, stumbling under the light from the windows, wearing a stretched-out striped tank top and dirty sweatpants. His eyes were bulging with sheer terror, his mouth wide open. He was waving his arms and screaming that something had grabbed someone, dragged them off, and eaten them. He woke up the whole village, scared everyone half to death. Pretty much all the locals and several volunteers came running to see what was going on. My mom told me to stay inside, but I could still hear every word of Vasily's clearly, since he was standing right near our house. I'm walking home from Timoka's place, and there's this door standing right in the middle of the road, just standing there, like it's planted in the ground, and in front of it there's some guy in an orange jacket, like the search volunteers wear. He's standing there, trying to open the door. He walked around it, then, looked like he gave up and walked away. I almost went over to look too. I mean, I've seen doors before. But then it just suddenly creaked open slowly, all on its own. And it wasn't empty space behind it, it was pitch black, total darkness, and a freezing cold came pouring out of it, like the cold of a grave. And then this huge clawed paw reached out of the blackness. It grabbed the guy by the head. He didn't even have time to make a sound before it dragged him into the darkness. The door slammed shut right away, and from behind it came a horrible scream, muffled, like through a pillow, then the crunch of bones, and blood started seeping out from under the door. Uncle Vasily was a known drunk. He'd had alcohol-induced hallucinations maybe 10 times before, so not many people believed him. But some people, including my dad, said they'd also seen a white door just standing in the middle of the street. The next day, a neighbor told us that right where Vasily had pointed, they found fresh blood on the ground. But worse than that, when the search team did a head count, they realized one of the volunteers was missing. As I recall, the panic in the village started building gradually. There were rumors going around that Uncle Lyonya had killed the volunteer and was still hiding somewhere in the village, but others said a serial killer had shown up among us, and that Leonid had been his first victim. The more superstitious neighbors started going to church more often. My grandmother read prayers every evening in front of the icon corner and sprinkled holy water over the doorstep. The police started searching people's homes, going through attics and cellars. They came to our place too. They wouldn't even let me out into the yard alone anymore, only under close supervision from one of the adults. I wanted to talk to Pashka about the white door, but our parents wouldn't let us visit each other anymore, so we could only talk online. Pashka told me he'd dug around the internet, looking for scary stories and legends about doors, but he hadn't found anything that matched our situation. Another classmate of mine, Dimka Plyushkin, said he'd seen the same white door late one evening from his window. It was standing in front of his fence, and then it opened slightly. He stepped back from the window to grab something heavy to throw at it, but by the time he got back, the door was already gone. I wouldn't say us kids were scared by these stories about the mysterious door, more like worked up, excited. It felt like a scary story come to life, the kind we used to scare each other with, and honestly it was more fascinating than frightening. But things in the village got worse a few days after the volunteer's disappearance, when shopkeeper Aunt Dasha reported that her coworker Luzia hadn't shown up for her shift. Luzia's neighbor swore he'd seen her alive and well early that morning, smoking on his porch. Luzia had come out of her house, said hello to him, and headed off to work as usual, but she never made it to the store. On the fence near the corner house, police found a few drops of fresh blood. People got even more spooked after that. They started leaving the village quickly. Soon it felt like there were more police and emergency workers than actual locals. They patrolled the streets every night in small groups. My parents started seriously considering moving away, first to relatives, then maybe to some rented place later. They decided to send me and my grandmother to my uncle's first, while Mom and Dad stayed behind to keep helping with the search. The night before my grandmother and I were supposed to leave, I was sitting up around 1 in the morning, quietly playing on the computer. I figured I'd get my fill of Dota, since I had no idea if my uncle would even let me touch his computer. While I was busy shooting monsters, I drank a bunch of soda and, naturally, ended up needing to use the bathroom. My grandmother usually kept a bucket in the entryway for that, so we wouldn't have to go outside at night, but with all the worry about the trip the next day, she'd forgotten about it. and by then I really couldn't hold it anymore. I should have just gone and woken up my parents, asked one of them to walk me to the outhouse. But I was just too embarrassed. I was already a big kid, after all, 11 years old. Why would my parents need to walk me to the toilet at night? I brushed off the thought that a monster from the white door might be waiting for me. I was 100% sure it wouldn't come for me, that I was perfectly safe inside my own fence. After all, the first time I'd seen that door with Pashka, the monster hadn't touched us, so I grabbed a flashlight from the dresser and calmly walked outside. All the neighbors were already asleep, no lights in any windows, and the street was pitch black. I stopped on the porch for a moment, listening to the sounds of the night and shining my flashlight over the fence. A dog was barking somewhere across the village. An owl was hooting in a tree. I heard the distant rumble of an engine and a mechanical voice coming through a megaphone, the search team out at the edge of the forest, calling out for the missing people. After standing on the porch a bit longer, I ran around behind the house, where our wooden outhouse stood next to the shed. After I finished, I calmly headed back toward the house. As I came around the corner, my flashlight swept across the log wall, and I froze in place, like I'd just slammed into something solid. Standing right in the middle of our yard, in front of the gate, was a white door. The exact same one I'd seen with Pashka by the abandoned house. What else could it possibly be? Except this time, I could see scratches near the handle, like claw marks, and at the very bottom, small dried-up reddish flecks. I saw all of it in vivid detail, because pure terror had sharpened every single one of my senses. I stood there, maybe 10 feet from that damn door, completely frozen, unable to move. I couldn't believe this was actually happening to me. I had already started raising my hand to pinch myself, hard, just to check, but then the gold-colored handle clicked downward. The door began to creak open slowly. It felt like someone had given me a hard kick from behind, and I bolted, not toward the porch, but the other way, around the corner of the house. I didn't try hiding in the outhouse or the shed. Some instinct told me that wouldn't save me. So I scrambled over the rickety fence and tumbled straight into a thick patch of bushes, where stinging nettles were growing too. The burning stung across my bare arms and legs, but I didn't even notice. I covered my face with my hand from the branches and crashed out into the open yard. I ran up to my parents' bedroom window and pounded on it with my fist. "Mom, Dad, there's a door, there's a door." I screamed, nearly shattering the glass. I saw my parents jolt up to the window, pale, terrified, and disheveled from sleep. Dad ran off somewhere away from the window, while Mom frantically fumbled with the bottom latch that always jammed. Then I heard, off to my right, a strange sound, like a rapid clicking of a tongue. I spun around without even thinking and swung the flashlight toward the sound. Just a few steps away from me, two massive hands rested against the wall of our house, like two enormous excavator buckets, black, wrinkled, with huge curved claws. Between them rose a giant bald black head, completely covered in deep furrows and wrinkles. Its eyes looked like two bowling balls, with red irises locked directly onto me. I don't remember if I screamed when I saw that thing or just stood there frozen, but I remember clearly how horribly my mom screamed when the clawed hand grabbed me around the middle and started dragging me toward it. I fought back with everything I had, hitting at the arm, which was as hard and as thick as a tree trunk, and I dug my fingernails into the log wall, just trying not to be dragged toward the door. I remember hearing my mom smash the window to reach me, trying to save me, but by then I'd already been torn from the wall of the house, lifted off the ground over the fence, and pulled toward the wide-open white door, where the monster's arm was sticking out, vanishing into the impenetrable blackness. And then suddenly a roar erupted from inside that made my ears ring. The monster's grip loosened, and I dropped onto the grass, almost hitting the fence on the way down. My dad, in nothing but his sleep pants, was standing by the door, swinging an axe at the doorframe over and over. Splinters flew off it, along with splatters of something dark, like blood. It hit his face, his chest, but he just kept chopping, like he'd lost all sense of it, not even noticing. I remember vividly how one of the monster's claws shot out of the darkness, swiping down at Dad, trying to catch him, but he somehow managed to dodge it just in time. The claw retreated back inside, the door slammed shut hard, and it shook violently, like something was pounding it from the other side. Dark clots of blood leaked from the cracks along the edges, from where the axe had struck, staining the white surface red. "Sergey, get inside now!" Dad shouted at me, then ran for the shed. I scrambled up onto the porch and threw myself at the neck of my terrified mother, who'd run outside with my grandmother. A second later, Dad came back from the shed with a green metal gas canister. Earlier, he could barely carry it with both hands, it was that heavy, but in that moment, probably running on a surge of adrenaline, he carried it like it weighed nothing. He swung it and splashed gasoline generously all over the bloodied, shuddering door. Then he ran past us into the entryway and grabbed the box of matches that always sat there, next to the ashtray and lighter. He struck a match and threw it at the door. A second later, flames burst up with a hiss. Our yard lit up brightly from the fire, and I could see the frightened faces of our neighbors over the fence, who'd come running at the noise. Whatever was behind the door let out a roar, like some kind of wounded wild animal. The door shook even harder. The handle rattled wildly, like something was locked inside and the creature couldn't get out anymore. And then the burning door began sinking quickly into the ground, swallowed up by sand mixed with gravel, as if the earth had turned to soft water. In less than 10 seconds it had completely disappeared from view, and our yard went dark and dead silent once again. What happened after that, I barely remember. I think the shock caused some kind of gap in my memory. After the thing nearly dragged me off, I didn't speak for several months, and for a long time I'd wake up screaming from nightmares. The disappearances in our village stopped after that, but we moved away anyway, and eventually the whole village died out. The 4 people taken by that creature are still officially listed as missing to this day,